The snack wrap plus Caesar sauce equals extra crispy chicken Caesar-y greatness. Sounds delicious. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Finding ways to be financially savvy is a smart move, and knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream home or new ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Head to statefarm.com to get a quote. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Good morning. Welcome on in. 3, 2, 1. Good morning. Welcome on in on this Tuesday morning. LeBron James, man, big story over the weekend, and we got it covered here big time. We're going to go to Philly, let you hear an interview we did with Derek Bodner, who works for Philly Sports back there in Philadelphia. Get his thoughts on the Sixers signing LeBron James. Big news, bombshell news, Derek. What was your first initial impression when you heard the news?
Well, I mean, I think it's what we all do in today's day and age, making sure that that's a real Shams Charania account and that I'm not being played. No, I mean, look, this was one where, like, obviously we've been talking about LeBron for a long time, been waiting for him to make a decision. The Sixers have been on the list, but it always felt like it was a distant third. It just always felt like, familiarity or hometown would eventually win out. And, the Sixers just don't have, outside of, like, Bryce Harper, Philadelphia does not have very many star-level MVP-level athletes that choose to go there. So it was pretty stunning. I think there's a pretty obvious basketball case that you could make, but there's a lot more that goes into a lot of these decisions than just pure basketball. So, yeah, it was absolutely stunning. And it, quite frankly, is still stunning 3 days later.
Oh, man, I can remember you brought that up about Bryce Harper. Now, I live in Utah now, but I was born in North Jersey, and my sister went to Glassboro State, so I spent a lot of time with her. She lived down there at Ocean City in the summers, so I got a lot of Philly in my background. And I can remember when Harper signed. If I remember, it was during spring training. Spring training had already begun, if I remember correctly, and he's a kid that I've actually saw play when he was 12 years old out of Vegas in travel baseball, so I'd followed Bryce Harper and all that stuff. And I remember when he signed, man, I had to get on. I had to listen to Missinelli to go at length. It was such a huge story at that time. I turned on the radio on my phone from back there, and I would imagine that this type. Now, Bryce Harper was entering his prime. He'd already had some good seasons. LeBron is obviously at the end, but in terms of community reaction, you rival the same type of thing there?
Oh, 100%. And look, the Sixers have had two pretty groundbreaking moves in the last month. Look, everybody was absolutely excited and stunned about Jaylen Brown. This one, amazingly, has more people talking. And I say that because, like, Jaylen Brown is in his prime star who could be a building block for 3 to 5 years, possibly even longer, whereas LeBron is obviously, like you said, at the end of the career. So you would expect that the 29-year-old who was just sixth in MVP voting would get a little more fanfare, but this is LeBron James. Everything is different about that. And, yeah, when you talk about the team that was just 2 months ago pretty down in the dumps, a really good win over the Boston Celtics in round one, but then a humiliation against the Knicks in round two, and a team that was being anchored by two relatively old, pretty injury-prone stars. The excitement and the turnaround in that excitement is a sense of whiplash that I was not expecting this summer, but it's definitely reinvigorated and breathed a lot of real excitement into this fan base.
Hi, this is Riley Jensen here. I do disagree a little bit. Maybe you're talking about people that choose Philadelphia, but come on. Saquon Barkley, Terrell Owens, Bryce Harper. I mean, there's been people that have gone to Philadelphia that are big stars, isn't there?
Sure, but Saquon he's a hometown kid. He grew up an hour north of Philly.
Fair enough.
So that's a little bit different. I brought up Bryce. Bryce was maybe the first time in the modern era somebody outside, like an MVP caliber player from the outside chose Philly. So it's something we're still kind of getting used to. But yeah.
So my real question, and I was just pushing back a little bit on you, is Embiid and LeBron, two significant stars Obviously, Embiid has some significant injury history and mileage, but in terms of managing egos, can these two, can they mesh together? Can they become a team that really pushes for a championship and can put their ego aside?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think that I probably worry about the egos a little less than just the pure fit on the court. Because obviously LeBron has had a ton of success in the league. Embiid has been an MVP caliber player. If this was earlier in their careers, maybe it would be a little more difficult. But I think Embiid, quite frankly, has been – Embiid, I think one thing we saw when Tyrese Maxey really started ascending and when they added James Harden, if you are good enough, Embiid is willing to sacrifice touches and to cede control of the offense. And I think he's had such a burden in terms of just creating offense for the team for so long. I think he'll be fine from a mentality standpoint. I do worry a little bit that they're just two players who like to operate pretty much from the same spots on the floor, whether that's, LeBron kind of in that mid post or Embiid, running a lot of pick and roll and mid-range ISO games. You got to worry about that a little bit. It would be great if Embiid can extend his range because he's a lot more comfortable from the mid-range. He'll shoot 50% on 17, 20-foot jumpers, but stepping out to the three-point line, he doesn't like doing at quite the same volume. So I'm a little more worried about the floor spacing, the floor spots they like to operate. I think from a just pure ego perspective, you never really know until you're asked to do so. Like Embiid's very rarely had matching talent around him, so you have to see how it plays out. But I do think probably just the pure mechanical fits concern me a little bit more than just ego.
Derek Bodner joining us. He covers the Sixers for Philly Sports. The Jaylen Brown situation, no one questions his talent, but for whatever, I think the reason, at least publicly, he wanted something that he couldn't be in Boston maybe, and soured on the organization. So beautiful trade. I mean, I think you make that 100 out of 100 times for sure. He's only 29 years old, so he still has some good ball ahead of him. Making $57 million. It's an outrageous amount of money, but that's what these guys make these days. I'm wondering, clearly there had to have been some conversation, so certainly he doesn't pick up his phone and says, oh, we got LeBron. He must have been clued into it, and the baggage there is a little bit, it's not overwhelming concern, but it's a little bit of a concern that now you got all this talent. Who's going to be having the ball the most when it comes down to FGAs? Who's going to have the most? All that stuff. How do you think with him all that messes?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, like you said, there's a lot of concern over whether or not he wanted to be an equal 1A with Tatum in Boston. He obviously made a lot of comments about how this was, maybe his favorite year of his career, both because I think the implication that he was the leading force of the offense and also just that they overachieved the way that they did. And now you're in a spot where, like, some nights you might be a third or fourth option. I don't think as an overall season he will be a third or fourth option. I think he will quite possibly be right up there with anyone, but you will have certain nights where you have mismatches to exploit, matchups you want to attack. He might not be getting the role that he is accustomed to. Is he okay with that? And I think it's going to come down to two things. Like, I think a lot of times when you change situations like that, the first year is always the easiest. It's easy to talk yourself into that in a new situation. Like, if he was going to be a second or third or fourth option in Boston, it would probably be a little bit tougher of a conversation because he's been there so long. But coming to a new spot, you want to be on your best behavior. So year two, if they win in year one, all of a sudden it's a lot easier in year two to go back into that role. But if they struggle, if they don't meet expectations, if it's clunky at times, that's when I think you start worrying about it. And yeah, I think there's always got to be a concern, especially a guy like Jaylen right now, who's, he's eligible for an extension. I think yesterday was the first day he was eligible for an extension. There'll certainly be a conversation if they don't do anything this summer that they will have next year. You want that Supermax contract. Is this potentially going to get in the way of that? And again, people are willing to sacrifice stuff like that when you're winning and competing for a championship. But if you come up short, that's when I think I start worrying about that.
In the first few days, and I know this is early, has LeBron, indicated anything publicly or privately about why Philly specifically was where he chose? And is this a legacy play, a title chase, or something more personal? Do you have any insights into that?
Yeah, well, I certainly think his relationship with Maxey helps. Obviously, Maxey is the highest profile non-LeBron Clutch Sports client, and they have a really strong relationship. They work out together a lot in the offseason and have for the last 6 or so years. So I think that helps. But I think a lot of this is just he feels like Philadelphia is his best chance to compete for a title. He would be, I think, the first player to ever win a title in 4 cities if he does so, and obviously then getting that 5th. I think that's where he's coming from. So, no, I don't think it's necessarily like – and winning a title helps with legacy and all that. But I think it's a little bit of Maxey, and Maxey helps you feel both confident in their talent on the floor, but also comfortable in the locker room. And a lot of he just felt like this was the best place to win a title, and whether or not he ends up being true, we will find out in time.
On paper right now, you look at that starting 5, and that's really impressive. Throwing Edgecombe, kid we saw play at Baylor here in the Big 12. We like him, NBA body. He had a nice rookie season. You already mentioned Maxey. And then the other 3 guys, I mean, that can rank right with anybody in the league. How about the bench? What's that going to look like? I know they got Caldwell Pope and Dean Wade, I think were off-season acquisitions. Tell us about what they have as far as filling out the actual rotation.
No, I mean, you started off there with the keys. Anthony Simons they signed for, I think, $6 million. He is an elite off-ball shooter. Doesn't play a lick of defense, but he will help spread the floor for your stars, so I think he will fit in that regard. Dean Wade as a guy who will do a lot of the dirty work, be one of your better, more versatile defenders, and also make just enough shots from the perimeter that hopefully he will spread the floor a little bit as well. And then KCP, a guy who has really had 2 down years shooting, but I think if you look at his overall shot quality, it has dropped over the last 2 years as well. So when he gets next to a real elite creator like LeBron, I think they're hoping that he can make more shots than he has the last few years, but it's on a minimum contract, so you're not too worried if it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And then you got rookie PHLY, who probably has his role reduced a little bit, but I think he has a little bit of ability to create off the dribble that they're excited about. Dominic Barlow, who actually started a lot, more of a defensive-minded forward. And then you got the big man rotation of Adem Bona and Errol Hukporti, which is probably the biggest question mark on the team because Joel Embiid's going to miss 30 games almost by design. So I think that's probably the one area Sixers fans are a little bit concerned about, but they have time. If Hukporti and Bona don't work out, that'll probably be an area you see them pursue at the trade deadline.
All right, there you go. Now we're going to get our guy, our favorite national guy, Brian Geltzeiler, SiriusXM Radio and NBAtb. Hear what he has to say. That's coming up next.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Thanks for joining us, DJ and PK. DJ is off. Mental health performance coach and former quarterback Riley Jensen sitting in right now. We're going to the scene, close to the scene anyway, of the big news. Brian Geltzeiler, SiriusXM NBA radio host and NBAtb contributor. The news broke the other day on LeBron James making his decision, and he's going to Philly, not too far from where my guy Brian is, just about a couple hours away. Brian, what was your first initial reaction when you heard the news?
Hey, it's pretty awesome. I love the choice that he made. I think it's great for the league. I think it's great for LeBron. It's obviously great for the Sixers. I think he just made a super, super decision. It's a team that is got a couple question marks, but by the same token, his presence answers a big chunk of those question marks. And I think he was thoughtful about it. He took his time, which I know a lot of people in the media were unhappy with. I was not one of them. He had earned the right to take as much time as he wanted to. And the fact that 41 years old, that he still has the gravitas to hold up the league's transaction cycle, I don't think that should have factored into his decision. He doesn't have a responsibility to everybody else to make a decision on his future faster than he's ready to. I just think everything about this decision I think is good for the league, good for the Sixers, good for LeBron James. This is a really, really cool choice. It's a little bit outside the box, and I think the Sixers are not only going to be a whole lot of fun to watch, but they're going to be a fantastic team this year.
Yeah, for me, I always look who are the 2 finalists, because if you don't get to the final, there's no point in worrying about if you can win the title, right? You got to get to the final in order to win the title. So I'm focused on the East, and I'm wondering your perspective as far as where they fit in. For me, as long as Embiid, and that's an if, I get it, if he can have any form of health when we get to the postseason, I like their chances to come out of the East certainly as much as anybody else's.
So I do too. I think the East I had the Knicks on a separate tier than everybody before this, and now I have the Sixers on that same tier with them. Now, here's what I'll say, and this is one of the reasons I do give the Sixers a decent chance to come out of the East. It is really hard in this era of NBA basketball to repeat as champion, let alone repeat as a finals contestant, let alone repeat as champion. We've seen last 8 years, different champions each and every year. Many years, there's just been different teams that go to the finals year in and year out. Like, are we having teams that are repeating in the finals? We really haven't at all. And I think that's even, look at the Celtics, lost in the finals 22, weren't there at 23, won the championship in 24, nowhere to be found in 25 or 26. Like, you look up and down the line with teams going to the finals. Oklahoma City wins it in 25, can't make the finals in 26. So the odds of the Knicks going back are against the Knicks. The Knicks, one thing with the Knicks, they've been blessed for the most part with fantastic health the last 2 years in the playoffs. Now, this year, to be fair, OG Anunoby did strain a hamstring in the first round. They had Mitchell Robinson break a knuckle before the finals. But because they took care of their business and didn't play with their food, they were able to have enormous 1 week rest periods, 2 of them in the NBA playoffs, which is unheard of, which allowed those guys the benefit to get themselves healthy enough to play. With all that said, they've still been blessed with great health. Here's the thing I look at with Philly. Listen, Embiid helps, don't get me wrong. Embiid also hurts in some ways, too. When you look at how Jalen Brunson destroyed Joel Embiid in a 4-game sweep last year in the second round, they just it was a simple formula for the Knicks. Embiid's on the floor, bring his man to the ball on the screen, get him switched on to Brunson and go. And that was an easy thing to do. Here's what I love about this Philly team. There is a version of them without Embiid that's very, very good and plays an up-tempo game and gets a lot of easy baskets. You're going to see a lot of LeBron at 5 with Dean Wade at the 4. Keep in mind, there's only a certain amount of these dominant centers in the NBA that you need a really big guy like Joel Embiid to match up against. Now, again, to be fair, one of them is Karl Anthony Towns with the Knicks. But if you look up and down the Eastern Conference, there's not many of them in the East, okay? And there's a couple of them in the West, Jokic, Wemby, but you don't have these enormous big centers. Here's my point. Getting away with LeBron at the 5 for some big chunks of time for the Sixers is actually going to be a decent hiding place for him on some of these lesser centers. So I look at Philly and feel like even with the uncertainty of Embiid, they are formidable regardless.
From your national vantage point, how does the league's locker rooms and front offices view Philly's gamble on 40-plus LeBron? Are rival execs and players reading this as a real title threat or like a legacy farewell tour?
Oh, no, real title threat, Riley. This is, LeBron made this decision, and it's interesting because we were all prognosticating and predicting in the weeks that we were waiting for LeBron to make this choice. And when we, and the big thing is the criteria in each of these finalists was different, right? If he wanted to truly be close to home, the Warriors would have been the right choice. If he was interested in a really significant, top of the roster type of role to try and compete, Miami was the place to go. If there was a sentimentality of trying to bring another title back to his home area of Northeast Ohio and Cleveland, that sentimentality, if he prioritized that, would have brought him there. If he was just prioritizing a basketball fit, okay, regardless of money, which he made clear money had nothing to do with it, Philly was the best choice. And I think the people I've talked to around the league are all feel the same way. Oh, my God, is Philly really good now? And the thing about Philly being really good, and I think it's really important to understand this, Embiid can play 40 games and LeBron can play 50, and as long as they're both healthy at the right time, Philly's dangerous. Because Philly is going to be a top 4 team in the conference regardless. Why? Because, first of all, they brought Jaylen Brown in. He is a regular season wins monster. Just look at his career. Okay, the last 10 years, I don't know that you'll find a player in the NBA that's won more regular season games than Jaylen Brown. That's what he does. Then you look at Tyrese Maxey, who was one of the leaders in the league last year in minutes per game. His style of play will win you a lot of regular season games. Here's my point. The Sixers have this luxury right now of not having to run Embiid on back-to-backs, okay? LeBron may have a couple of 3 or 4 game vacations over the course of the season season to keep him fresh. They can worry about keeping those guys fresh and still win so many regular season games with this Brown, Maxey, Edgecombe core and the other pieces that they have. So I think Philly here, you look around the league and everybody kind of feels the same way, that the Sixers are have an opportunity to put their stamp on the championship picture in this coming season.
That familiar voice you hear is Brian Geltzeiler. You can hear him on NBA radio and see him on NBA TV. We see a lot of teams have a clear pecking order. Obviously, with the Knicks, it was Brunson, and then they go from there. Towns was involved, but they knew where the ball was going most of the time, and then those types of players decide what they're going to do, whether shoot, pass, whatever. The Sixers, you got the Jaylen Brown thing, talking about how this was his most fun year, I guess it was, which leads you to believe, well, he didn't like playing with Tatum, whatever it might be. How do you think all the pieces fit together as far as that pecking order with the Sixers?
So and the first thing you'll hear people say is, well, who's going to sacrifice? That's easy. LeBron's going to sacrifice. LeBron is not a guy that's coming to this game and feels like he needs 20 shots a game. And don't get me wrong, if 20 shots a game is going to be what helps them win games, he'll take them. But that's not a requirement coming in. So we know right there LeBron's going to sacrifice. Here's the other thing that I think gets overlooked from the, only one basketball crowd when they look at what's happening here with the Sixers. Joel Embiid turned this thing over to Therese Maxey last year. Embiid walked into that team with the understanding Maxey is our best player. This all runs through him. So the fact that it's Jaylen Brown there now, the fact that they got to work with LeBron, Joel Embiid at this stage of his career, he's won an MVP. He struggles to stay healthy, but what he has to prove is in the postseason. And to prove that in the postseason, it doesn't necessarily mean he's got to go out and get 40 and 20. He's got to win games. So the point being is, if being deferential, and Embiid we have seen can be a very unselfish player when he wants to be. If being deferential offensively is going to be what's best for the team, I don't have any doubt in my mind that Joel Embiid's going to do that. I think he's prepared to do that. The thing is this, and this is so important to understand, this took a lot of time. Therese Maxey is a Clutch Sports client that LeBron has a prior relationship with. Right. Therese Maxey was all on board with this, okay? LeBron has a relationship with Joel Embiid. They played together in 2024 in the Olympics in Paris, okay? Those guys, it's been reported in multiple places, were in plenty of touch. Embiid told him he wanted them. And you know what? I know there's talk. Jaylen Brown made a comment about Bronny a couple of years ago. Jaylen Brown and LeBron have had contact. Jaylen Brown wants LeBron James there. Jaylen Brown would like nothing more, okay, to stick it to the Boston Celtics because he doesn't like how they handled things on the way out at all at the end of last season. So the fact that Brown, there was always talk Brown wants his own team. What Brown wants to do is stick it to the Celtics more than anything else, and now he's got his chance. And again, I also go back to this, guys. So much of this was about the New York Knicks. Because we heard Rich Paul say this a week before LeBron's announcement. We heard Rich Paul on his Game Over podcast on Ringer and Spotify podcast network. We heard him say, if the Knicks did not win the title, LeBron was going to New York. Okay, so what happens? What's the next best thing if you can't help the Knicks win their first title in 53 years? Go to Philadelphia and help them knock off the Knicks and let them win their first title in the last 44 years. So that's a lot. So much of this was about what the Knicks accomplished, the Knicks achieved, and what they represent in the Eastern Conference.
You've been able to observe relationships and team culture across locker rooms for years. If you were, coaching LeBron through this situation, these first few days in Philly, these first months in Philly, what would be your coaching style or philosophy for him? What would you tell him would be what's really needed for these guys that are on this team right now?
So let me, Rodney, am I putting my LeBron advisor hat on, or am I putting my Nick Nurse hat on?
LeBron James. Let's go LeBron James.
LeBron James advisor. Let's go. Yeah. So listen, I would. There's not a lot at this stage of LeBron James's career and his life that you have to tell him regarding this. LeBron is walking into this knowing that he is going to be connective tissue. And ultimately what I would say to LeBron is that your best posture in this group is the exact same posture you had for the month of March with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, where you picked your spots, deferred to those guys, and watched a team that had the best month any team had in an NBA season this year. That's what I would want to bottle for LeBron coming here. And By the way, I don't know that anybody needs to say that to LeBron. I think LeBron picked this team for that exact reason, because that's when LeBron was having his most fun this year. And yes, we heard Rich Paul say this the other day with Max Kellerman on his podcast. He said that LeBron beating the Rockets with a compromised Austin Reeves and no Luka Doncic in the first round was part of what fueled him wanting to come back and do this again, because he saw come postseason, he's got enough left to slay some dragons. And if he has the right people around him, he can absolutely do that. So I think there's if LeBron maintains that posture he had in terms of how he works with teammates, I think that's a no-brainer fit for them. With all of that said, I don't think if he wasn't planning on doing that, this would not have been the place he picked.
Switching gears a little bit, you comfortable with the Jazz not matching Kessler?
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen. You offered this guy 5 years and $140 million. You offered him $28 million a year. Played 5 games last year. Yeah. 5 games. Okay? So you now turned around and you were able to get, without having to take a salary back, you were able to bring in 2 first-round picks, 2 unprotected first-round picks. This was a no-brainer deal for the Jazz. Listen, I like Walker Kessler. He's got to prove he can stay healthy. And he may be a clunky fit with this group, with having Markkanen and Jaren Jackson. And you know what? They're going to experiment. This is where Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge and Justin Zanuck are so smart. They're going to experiment with the whole Jaren Jackson at 4, Markkanen at 3, with Nurkic at 5. And what's Nurkic on? 2 years, $22 million. Essentially a disposable contract you can get rid of if that experiment doesn't work. You are not going to have that with Walker Kessler. Listen, this 4-year, $130 million deal, okay, this may be, outside of the Gary Trent deal, this may be untradeable by the Lakers early on, really. Like, it's, for a guy that has not played all that much in the last 2 years, this is an absurd deal that the Lakers got played on, in my opinion. Because why? Because Luka Doncic wanted Walker Kessler there. And Utah absolutely took advantage in bidding him up, made a very smart decision not to match that deal. Listen, right now, the Jazz are at the point where there's a lot of teams out there, not all the teams, but a lot of teams out there that are playing checkers, okay? The Ainges and Justin Zanuck are playing chess.
How about OKC? Now, they had to get rid of some peripheral guys, but they didn't seem to have to get rid of the absolute core guys. And I realize Dort did start. But the core guys, to me, are still there, and they've got some younger guys that they want to give some time to. So I don't necessarily see them, if they don't have the injury issue, taking a huge step back.
Oh, I think regular season-wise, they're not going to take a huge step back. I think they're going to be an absolute regular season monster with all of that depth. Here's my issue with them, and this is where the loss of Dort hurts them. They have a size problem on the perimeter. They have a size problem on the perimeter in a conference final against San Antonio. And if they would go to an NBA final, and let's assume it's, the Knicks, they'd have a size problem there too. And the thing is, Dort was only about 6'3", 6'4". Dort is a friggin' linebacker, man. Yeah. The dude is as strong as the day is long, and that's a piece that they can't replace. Listen, Alex Caruso is an excellent defensive player. He will do a really nice job. Cason Wallace is an excellent defensive player. Alex Caruso is 6'4", and he's 175 pounds soaking wet. Cason Wallace is an excellent player that's got a lot of upside and a really good defensive player, especially on small guards. But you're going to put Cason Wallace and have him spend a lot of time on Kevin Durant. Yeah, you're going to have him spend, he's going to be your main Dylan Harper defender. You kind of look at where they are size-wise on the perimeter and who they have to match up with, and you don't necessarily love it. With all that said, the bringing back Isaiah Hartenstein, shoring themselves up with bigs in the draft with the kid Mara from Michigan, and they really like this kid from Georgetown last year, Sorber, that didn't play this year. What I do think you are going to see from them to counteract some of this perimeter size issues is they're going to play the majority of their minutes with 2 bigs on the floor. Chet Holmgren's going to be a 4 on this team. He's not going to play a lot of 5. And I think that's something that they're going after here to see if they can match up a little better with San Antonio, because I think one of the reasons they lost that San Antonio series had to do with the fact that they played small too frequently.
That was Brian Geltzeiler thinking about LeBron James and what he thinks of the Jazz not re-signing Kessler. He liked it, obviously. All right, coming up next, we're going to go heavy on football this morning. We're going to talk BYU and Utah football. What are some of their issues? Stay with us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome on in on this Tuesday morning. DJ and PK, Soccer Boy is off today. We're going heavy on football. We got the football guys. We got me, Jake Hatch, and later on, Mitch Harper and Steve Bodner will come in for an hour apiece, talking obviously Utah football and BYU football. They are our KSL insiders for both of those sports. They do a great job. And Jake, this morning, right now, before the 7 o'clock hour, issues for BYU and Utah. Let's start first with BYU. They got a lot of stuff that's coming back. They got some issues at receiver. I think that's the number one issue from the offensive perspective. What are we thinking? Now, we know we got JoJo Phillips, but we've been waiting. Now's his time. Can he be a big-time receiver?
Well, that's the question that you pose right there, is that if JoJo is capable of being what everybody thinks he is, they're going to be fine. They'll have a true number one wide receiver. But remember, last year, he got off to a good start, breaks his collarbone, misses the entire rest of the regular season, then comes back for the bowl game, had a really good bowl game. Aaron Roderick, throughout spring camp, and everybody I talked to down there, and everybody that would say anything on the record, was raving about Kyler Casper. Now, this is a guy who's a 4-star prospect out of Arizona, has had multiple season-ending foot injuries at Oregon.
Yeah.
He claims they're in the past. If that is indeed the case, they will have two guys, one in JoJo Phillips who stands 6'5", and Kyler Casper is a legit 6'6".
Yeah.
So they could have twin towers at the outside wide receiver spots. That could be really, really nice for them to have, but it is a major question that has to be answered at wide receiver.
And then who's a slot guy? I mean, Parker Kingston was really, really good.
It's probably going to be Legend Glasker. He's the cousin of Isaiah Glasker. Now, I interviewed him last fall, PK, at a Lehigh High School football game, and he told me during that interview, on the record, he volunteered. He said, "Hey, I actually almost went to BYU this year. I was supposed to graduate in the summer and enroll at BYU this fall. Coaches wanted me there to play. They think really highly of his talent. He's actually bigger than Glasker height-wise, weight-wise are probably similar, but he's got the same type of game-changing speed, and they think, at least in my mind, he's probably the most likely option to step in."
You said Glasker, you mean Kingston?
Well, he's the same size, like he's taller than Kingston, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And so same weight probably overall, but got the same type of speed that Kingston had, and he can be a game breaker, they hope.
Well, they're going to need that, obviously. Expect them to be able to throw the ball with more proficiency, although Bear obviously had a great season for a freshman. But we say as a freshman, so that means that we're expecting more as a sophomore. And I know Aaron Roderick, before the Retzlaff situation, had high standards for Retzlaff coming back for his senior year because he had played exclusively heavily as a junior pretty much the whole season. I don't think he missed any time there. No. And so now they're looking at Bear, same type of deal where he played the whole season. And now it's his second year, but for Retzlaff, it was his second year, even though he played junior college. Bear didn't, so he's a sophomore and, the true sophomore. So I don't know if I can expect a whole lot more, but I do expect more. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? He produced 3,500 total yards of offense last year, PK. He is one of 7 quarterbacks, if I recall correctly, at the Power 4 level who produced that amount of yards as a true freshman quarterback. And I believe 3 or 4 of those guys of that group went on to be either Heisman Trophy winners or Heisman Trophy finalists. It's a pretty eclectic bunch of guys.
So you're saying Bear is rare?
Well, sure, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, no, you're right. But I think that you can expect more. If he can push that to maybe, let's say, 4,000 total yards, he's going to be, I think, just fine. The added caveat to all that is LJ Martin. He was the engine that made everything go last year. He's the reigning offensive player of the year in the conference. Right. He was named the preseason offensive player of the year, and by his own acknowledgement, he understands he's got a lot of things riding on him, and he's ready to shoulder that load.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing as if he stays healthy, knock on wood, for draft positioning, essentially.
And to become the all-time leading rusher in BYU history.
Yeah, and there's no reason why he can't be. Yeah. The offensive line looks good enough. Looks like they'll be fine there. They've got enough vets returning.
They like it. They like that group.
Yeah, so they should be okay. If the receivers come through, then it looks like their offense is going to be fine. And they're very excited about tight ends.
Yeah.
I know they've got at least 2
Lions and Saliapaga
that they think that can make differences. And, we've heard about Lions and Saliapaga. He's from Oregon too, right?
Yeah, so he's an Oregon transfer. He's originally an Orem High School product, but went up to Oregon. His older brother played at BYU. That was the family tie.
Yeah, so I'm expecting big things, and hopefully the health is their way, and there should be no reason why they can't do what they're expected to do. Defensively, Jack Kelly. Yeah. But Ulavale, the Cal transfer, another local kid who's coming home. Now, he's only got 1 season, right?
Yeah,
he's capable, and we know Glasgow is really good, and then there's 3 or 4 others that there's got to be at all times a Kafusi in there somewhere.
There's 2, actually. Micah, who, by the way, I think it's Micah, who looks like the spitting image of a linebacker version of Bronson Kafusi. Yeah. I'm telling you, I'll show you the picture, PK. You'll laugh because it looks exactly like Bronson, but they also got Ace Kafusi, his cousin. Right. But I think if you want a question for BYU's defense, they've got 2 elite corners, and Evan Johnson, Shmev as they call him, and Trey Alexander. Those 2 are very, very good. They're all Big 12 caliber guys. Behind them, though, PK, it's one journeyman guy in Travion Williams. Is it Travion Williams? I've heard the young man's name who's coming from Mississippi State. Yeah. I don't think that's his right name, but apologies. They have one guy coming in from Mississippi State and then a bunch of youngsters.
Right.
So the depth at corner, if those 2 hold up, they're going to be just fine. The question is, are they going to be playing exclusively just those 2 guys at corner? That's not been the style they have played previously in this defense. They've usually rotated 3 or 4 corners throughout games. They've got to have some of these young guys step up at that spot.
Mm-hmm. And then safeties, we've got Satawal and Damuni.
Yes, those 2, and they're expected to be just fine. Tommy Prassis, who's got a lot of experience as well. Back, yeah.
He had some. Did he play an all last year?
He did. He played. Yeah. Remember, he played that nickelback spot for a while there before he got injured. Right. But he's got experience, and they think their safety spot. Tanner Wall was really, really good. It's all Big 12 first team. I got no problem saying great story. Walk on who became an all Big 12 performer. But they have got 3, 4, 5 guys at that safety spot. They're very confident in.
Mm-hmm. And then up front, maybe. Mm-hmm. Well, we're expecting Tunavasa to be a little more. What's the word? A bigger contributor, maybe.
Well, yeah, Justin Kirkland is his compatriot, and they both have said, PK, they think they can be the best tandem of defensive tackles in the Big 12.
And Kirkland, he played some, got injured.
He's played at Oklahoma State,
never
started
really
at
got
Utah
going.
Tech, and he had a knee injury. He showed up in camp last year. His knee just never really was 100%. So they played him in the 4 games they could play him in. Right. Redshirted him. He has declared himself fully healthy. The coaches think he's fully healthy. The other thing on the defensive line is they got a lot of young defensive ends. Remember, Nusi Taumue-Peau last year was a nice revelation. He's the kid from Westlake, a Stanford guy that opted not to go to Stanford after the whole Troy Taylor situation went down. They got to have a pass rush. You talk about Jack Kelly. He had 10 sacks a year ago. He was the first player in Kalani Sitake's decade-long tenure to have double-digit sacks in a season. That's crazy to consider, but it was true. Yeah. They got to replace that. Those defensive ends, Tausilia Khan, Taumue-Peau, Clegg,
back a second year,
Bodie Schoonover, those guys have to step up.
I like all those guys. I think they have that opportunity to be as effective as they've been. Yeah. We'll see, if the Jay Hill loss is big. Yeah. But you've still got guys coaching. Kelly Papinga will be a first year, but he's been coaching now for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And the guys up front, Gary Anderson's still around, so they've got enough guys from the coaching perspective that have experience. So I suspect they'll be fine, which is why they're some regards are the favorite to win the Big 12. I'd still go with Texas Tech myself until I see otherwise, but BYU. If they have a rematch in the conference final, I'm not going to be surprised.
Well, they're in prove-it mode here, PK. They've got to go out there, and they want to play in the college football playoff. You know what that's going to take?
That should be the goal,
You got to win the Big 12 title, or you have to knock off the likes of a Notre Dame at home.
If you beat Notre Dame, then doors can open.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right, switching over to Utah. Obviously, a lot of change, but also, too, not as much change as I think we want to think there is, actually. We'll start with the offense. They only retain one coach in Atawaya, but they retain the running back in Parker. Devin Dampier if he plays like he did against Nebraska and stays healthy, they are extremely dangerous. Mm-hmm. Now, I keep hearing, and we'll get it with Steve Bartle will be joining us later in the 9 o'clock hour, these receivers. And Morgan talked about it down in Texas a couple weeks back, that he thinks this group, I hate to say it because we've been hearing it, could be the best they've been, but man, we've cried wolf a little bit about their receivers to where I'm skeptical.
Well, I don't mean to laugh, but you're right. This has been a decade, almost 2 decades of, hey, this is our best wide receiver group to date, and it's like, okay, what are they going to produce? But
right.
I really like Braden Pagan, for example.
I mean, he's got a resume.
Yeah, he does. So I want to believe you're right that they are being sincere when they say this, but those wide receivers, you talk about like a proven mode for BYU. Both these wide receiver groups at both of these schools have got to step up this year because they've got to help their quarterback out in terms of getting themselves open and making it easier on that quarterback. But you're right. If Devin Dampier plays to the level we have seen from him, the Nebraska game, I even think early on last season, before some of those injuries kind of accumulated on him, he was super dynamic.
I'm expecting big things. I think he is a player of the year caliber in the Big 12.
I agree. Yeah.
If he plays all 12 and he's healthy, and he's a charismatic kid. Mm-hmm. People rally around him, and I think he wants to show a little bit. No offense for Jason Beck, but it was more me than him.
Well, yeah.
Now he's got that chance to show it because Jason's obviously over in Michigan.
Correct. The guy who brought him to Utah that he had featured in this offense, because some people I think will tell you that Devin Dampier is a system quarterback. He's a product of the system that Jason Beck does on offense because he produced at New Mexico under Jason, produced at Utah under Jason. Well, now with Kevin McGiven taking over, you're right. It's his opportunity to say, I can play in any system here.
Right. And he wants to play in the NFL. They all do.
Yeah.
So see what he can do here. Up front, obviously they lose 2 studs on the offensive line.
All 5 starters were turned over.
I think they've had enough guys who've gotten experience, and they showed it a little bit. I can remember talking to Mark Harlan at Allegiant Stadium before the game with Utah on the offensive line. He said this is a good opportunity for these guys to show what they can do, and they did.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about this is, they're turning over all 5 starters, but the cupboards aren't bare at that position because Jim Harding did a really good job of stalking talent because it seemed like every time there would be one guy who went down, Jim Harding would just say, hey, I'm going to plug and play this guy, and it worked out.
Right.
Now, will that work without him there? That, I think, is the question that remains, PK, is there's talent there. How quickly can they get integrated? But I thought that the look that you got against Nebraska in Las Vegas showed a lot of what they have on that O-line, even though, none of them were a full-time starter this time last year.
And they've got this big 5-star coming down with Jordan Gross from
Kelvin
Idaho,
Obot,
right?
with Jordan Gross,
5-star, man.
Yep.
Offensive line. Spencer Fano was that, and he started day one.
Well, I was going to say, his own coach, Jordan Gross, knows something about playing from the very get-go.
Yeah. Gross obviously was an NFL guy himself under Ronnie Mack coming back now. And so I'm excited to see what they can do offensively. I think the key is keeping Devin Dampier healthy. If Devin Dampier is healthy, they should be fine. Defensively, and they have just been plug and play at the defensive line for years now. Literally years.
But here's the problem. It was slipping the last 2 years. It has slipped, PK. I know this is going to come off bad, but I'm telling you, that is my chief concern for Utah defensively, is that defensive line has major question marks about it. I would love for guys like Carson Kaufusi, et cetera, to shut me up.
They've been talking about him a lot.
But they have you talk about groups that need to show that they are plug-and-play type guys. That's got to happen along the defensive line. I love
and also obviously the BYU kid is at Michigan. Henry Daly.
Yeah, John Henry Daly. Yeah, their leading sack artist. He's off to Michigan, and so they have got a lot of bodies there on the defensive line. I like to use the term a lot. There's a ton of potential there, but it's got to turn into production.
Yeah, and the thing about it is they, over the years, have had some big-time studs.
Absolutely.
Do they have big-time studs?
That's the question that needs to be answered because you're right. For so many years, it was plug and play. You may not know their name, PK, but it felt like every year some guy was going to step into defensive tackle or defensive end and produce it at an elite level for Utah because that's just the way that the Whittingham system had worked. I've seen from my vantage point, it's slipping the last 2 years. It's not that it's been awful, but is slipped to a level that I think that this year's unit, they should feel disrespected, and they need to go out there and shut everybody up with the way that they play.
Yeah. Excited to see if they have a stud.
Yeah.
Because they've had studs.
Yeah.
And Henry Daly, the most recent example. Tonavasa was very good. I can go down the list. I would need a program to remember all the guys. So see what they got there. It seems like since Startu Lele played mid last decade, every year they've had some all-conference candidates. Whether they have them this year
remains
to be seen.
The Nate Orchards. They've had elite players, and it's been a conveyor belt. Mm-hmm. I think there are bodies there, but the potential it's got to come through.
Right. Linebacker, losing some talent there, probably to the NFL. We'll see how that plays out with those guys trying to make teams now that camp is underway. But they do have some experience there, and they got a guy coming back who was injured.
Demooney? Mm-hmm. Levani Demooney?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Levani Demooney, talk about a guy who can ball.
Right.
He's kind of been forgotten because the whole thing out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Like when you get injured, you disappear off the radar for people.
Right.
If he's back and he's back to what he was, you're gonna have at least one pillar to build around.
Yeah. And they're talking about that. Yeah. And Reynolds has played some. Mm-hmm. So they've got some guys there. I'm wondering who are going to be the studs in the defensive backfield.
Well, because
they've had a number of guys, right, that go on right to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I think we'll see some new faces there. I know Nate Ritchie's got some experience back there, and they've got some other guys that have been able to play. So I think they should be okay. I think they should be okay defensively. They're going to need to be. Because there's some very good offenses, and it seems like the Big 12 has some really good offenses.
And they're spread too. They will spread you out. So, okay, if there are two guys on the staff, PK, that I trust that their units are going to hold up, and if not outright excel, it's at safety and at cornerback, because you have Morgan Scalley, and now there's going to obviously he's the head coach now, so it's taking him away from his day-to-day responsibilities from being the safeties coach, but he will still instill in these guys, hey, this is the level you're expected to play to. And then at cornerback, I trust what they've always produced. It's kind of what the defensive line conversation we just had. They seem to find somebody all the time, and I expect that those positions will excel, even if you don't know the names outside of maybe a Nate Ritchie, for example, that you're like, I recognize that guy.
Yeah.
By the way, one name to file away. I don't know if he may play a little bit this year. I think 2027 and beyond, though, is his time to shine. Davis Andrews. He's another local product. He's an American Fork High School grad. I am super excited for his potential. I watched him in high school. I called high school games with him. He was dominant at safety. He looks the part of a Nate Ritchie, of a Morgan Scalley himself. Some of these elite safeties that Utah has had in the past. If he's back and in shape, there's no reason to think that he can't contribute this year. But
being from Mission?
He's coming off of a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But that'll be interesting to see how much he can contribute this year, even if I think 2027 is really his time to step into the forefront.
All right, there you go, man. That's what we'll be hitting this morning. Stay with us. We got college football. It's right around the corner. Camps open in less than a week. BYU is going to have a little bit of media availability on Thursday. We'll be down there in conjunction with a golf tournament that they put on for the media, so we'll have you covered. So keep it all right here. Coming up next, what's trending on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.